Hey guys, Purple Engine 95, recording live from the local county prison cell, and it is Pride Month, and you might be thinking, what does that have to do with anything? There've just been a select couple of fights that I've been saving for Pride Month, so call me a shill or whatever, but this is, it felt weird to do them, right before Pride Month, so I kind of waited. And one of those fights is this one we're going to do today, which is Shezow from Shezow, Canadian or Australian or something? I don't know. It's a kids cartoon, and Ranma half, I think, is how it's pronounced. Or how it's said. I'm not sure. But Ranma from Ranma, right? And the tie of this fight, obviously, being that one is a boy who has to pretend to be a woman, and one is a boy who ends up turning into a woman. I guess they're both boys who turn into girls. Well, not women, technically, since they're underage, but they're both boys that turn into girls, I guess. I will be referring to them all as he, because they do identify as males, so even though because they're inadvertently turning into women. But, yeah, that's what we're going to do here. So, starting with Shezow, there's going to be a lot of specific information about both of these series that I miss or might not be as informed on, because I don't really follow either series. I didn't really watch. Shezow came on a little late for me to start watching, and Ranma came out a little early for me to start watching back in the day. So, but yeah. So, Shezow is I think his name is literally Guy or something. His name is in reference to him being a boy, right? So he inherited I think it was his grandmother's superhero suit that turns him into the superheroine Shezow, and gives him a set of powers, but it does attach itself to him, so he can never kind of be rid of it. It's a family heirloom that's supposed to be passed down to a daughter, but he found it and he ends up stuck with it. But it's not all bad, because it does give him incredible superhuman abilities, superhuman strength, speed, etc. A lot of these powers are not innate. I think it's called she speed or something. There's a pun, or a very specific name. It's like Impossible, where there's a specific name for each gadget and power. But it's a suit. He's capable of using super speed to the point where he can run around the entirety of his home city in, 45 seconds or something? But it does seem to be an activated power, because generally we see him moving at normal speeds relatively. Same with strength. We see him punching, villains at regular strength, and so we have to assume that the exponential feats of strength are something that's activated. Such exponential feats of strength sending a meteor back into space. Now this did require use of a second power, which is that Shezow can inflate his hands to giant size, and I don't think it increases their mass per se, but it does give him a better surface area to work with, so he can do things like punching meteors. In addition to all of the powers that he gets, he also has a lot of very high-end gadgets that would really substitute for powers, but whatever, breath mints that give you ice breath, what was it, eyelashes that when they blink can generate gusts of wind. Fishnet stockings that turn into actual nets to just capture you. Things of that nature, right? Like I said, Kim Possible-esque stuff. There is, however, some general weaknesses. One, the most prevalent being his hair. Now, his hair is not his natural hair, but it is, again, granted to him when he turns into Shezow. But should his hair and makeup specifically start to become, messed up, his powers will dwindle, and eventually, if they're completely messed up, he'll lose them altogether. The other similarity is the color pink. Like one time where he tried to change his costume to become a noir hero, and then realized he wasn't able to use any of his powers because his costume is powered by the color pink. Which would mean if it gets... Which I guess would only work if the costume itself were changed, because, it's still pink even if you, spill something on it. It's just pink underneath the spill, so he would have to put on a different costume, but he had to manually change the color of his costume using his powers, which... Yeah, so that's a different, so I was gonna say, because otherwise you'd say, oh, well, if the costume gets, something spilled on it, or if he bleeds on it or something, then it'll, no longer be pink. But I think it's literally more so that, if if you physically change the color of the fabric, not, just cover it in something, then it loses its power. But anyway, that's not really going to come up. It's mostly going to be the hair and makeup thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a very superhuman level character, just with some very, 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 professionally hazardous weaknesses, with, yeah, because I'm sure your hair and makeup won't get messed up when you, fight crime. Going into his opponent being Ranma. Now, Ranma, what's his name? Saotome, something like that, is a male martial artist who was trained in the anything goes combat style, which you should not be allowed to name your martial art anything. That's like naming your martial art, the best martial art or something. You shouldn't be allowed to do that, quite honestly. But it is a martial arts style that is essentially, quite literally designed to train you for every possible contingency. And when I say every contingency, I mean we find out that literally every situation they ever find themselves in, Ranma has trained himself for. Such as training up in the mountains and glaciers, training on figure skates, just in case you have to fight in figure skates. Even training surrounding yourself or covering yourself in fish and sausages and then walking into a room full of starving cats. That actually happens. But despite all the unorthodox approach, Ranma became a incredibly superhuman level martial artist throughout his life. And then at one point he was, I believe it's a curse from a Chinese well or something like that. Something like that sounds familiar. And anytime Ranma sneezes, his physical, biological sex changes. He turns into a woman and vice versa. Now, his temperament doesn't necessarily change much. His ability doesn't really change much. But there is one caveat that male Ranma has longer arms and therefore more reach. And female Ranma is noticeably faster. But other than that, their technique, their power, everything is pretty much the same. And they're both pretty well-rounded characters. And this is a martial arts manga, so what would it be without super secret techniques, like being able to jump in the air for extended periods of time, being able to blast your way through rocks, and ki blasts that are basically kamehamehas. In Ranma's case, his rival Ryuga, I'm going to get these names so wrong. Ryuga being the evil rival character, developed a technique powered by his own depression, which was very powerful because he could never beat Ranma. So he actually weaponized his own inability to beat his rival, which eventually led to him beating his rival. And this was called the Shunko something. It's like the blast of the prideful lion or something along those lines, right? And Ranma also learned this technique, but revised his own version of it called some other thing I can't remember, so it's Strike of the something tiger, right? Where it's powered by his own confidence rather than his depression. However, he is able to use both techniques if he needs to. The reason he chose the confidence one is because he's just naturally more upbeat and positive than Ryuga is. But he has shown to be able to use the depression one, so regardless of his temperament, he does have a technique that he can use. Now you're saying, well, you just said that Shezow can swipe meteors out of the air. And you also are mentioning the first combatant without finishing the analysis of the second one. Well, okay. When I say that Ranma is an expert-level, fully trained martial artist, I mean it approaches superhuman, like, Baki levels. Ranma can punch so fast that 500 punches look like one punch. And that was after a significant speed upgrade, but before that, he could still throw several hundred punches in a matter of seconds. So his speed is clearly, tremendous. He was able to catch rocks from a rock slide without moving his positioning, and catch them so that nobody behind him was getting hit by rocks. So his reaction speed is up there as well to match. He's struck through buildings and well, not like whole buildings, but he's struck through concrete walls and whatnot and jumped dozens of feet in the air. So he's clearly superhuman in his approach. But who do I think has this fight here? So, as I mentioned, Shezow, I think, pretty undisputedly has the advantage in terms of power, right? Power and speed and whatnot. But, as I said, these seem to be powers that have to be, like, consciously activated, right? They're not just innate abilities that he always possesses. Otherwise, he has incredible control of them, if he does. But I do feel like I've seen him go, she speed and then run, right? So, yeah, I feel like they're consciously activated. Which would mean that in a fight with an opponent equally as fast, that's going to be a detriment if his reaction time's not equally as fast. And you might say, well, Shezow also has all of these gadgets, but like I said, the element of surprise and whatnot isn't really a factor, considering Ranma has this incredibly diverse and very specific training, history. So I don't think there's anything Shezow could really do that he wouldn't be prepared for. And like I said, with his speed and reaction time being as high as it is, it's actually pretty likely that Ranma would win here. especially when you consider their weaknesses. Like, Ranma's really only weakness is his emotional state at any given point, based on which technique he's using. If he starts losing confidence, then his confidence attack won't be as strong, and if he starts feeling confidence, his depression attack won't be as strong. And also the fact that if he happens to sneeze mid-fight, that he will transform into a girl, but that's not really a weakness, it's just a trade-off of stats. Shizow's weakness is an actual weakness, where if her hair, or his hair and makeup gets messed up, he starts losing his powers. But it's not like Ranma would know to do that, and he's also just generally nice, and if he thinks he's fighting a girl, he probably wouldn't, start messing up her hair and makeup. So really, it's a matter of which character is going to outlast the other, and which character is going to get the first strike in. It's a little difficult for me to look at a character like Shezow. Like I said, and I know I just said, even though it's an activated power, a character with the ability to run across an entire city in 45 seconds and punch a meteor back into space, or at least, throw a meteor back into space. It's a little difficult for me to say that character loses to a martial arts style character. So really, this is actually a lot closer than you might think. Yeah, just go ahead and, rev your engine while I'm talking. If I had to make a decision, I would still give it to Shezow. For that reason, it is deceptively close. It's not a normal human fighting, like a superhuman. It is two superhumans fighting. One is just superhuman on kind of a different level. And even with the obvious weaknesses and whatnot, Ranma's just really not equipped to exploit those weaknesses or find out about them. So quick summary. Even though Shizow's strengths require more setup and require more wherewithal to use, they're just too overwhelming, I feel, to really not overwhelm Ranma. Shizow's weaknesses are more prevalent than Ranma, but Ranma's not equipped to exploit them, and Shizow's gadgets are kind of matched by Ranma's prior training, but his prior training can't account for a character just blatantly stronger than him, and also can't account for the weaknesses that he's not able to exploit, like I said. So, yeah, that's how I feel about it. So I'm going to give this win to Shezow. But, next week and the week after, and hopefully I'll just do 4 of these in a row, where, it'll be vaguely Pride Month themed episodes, so look forward to that. Anyway, happy June, Verbal Legend 95. See ya.